Hey gang, I'm in Meridian, Mississippi today at the Okeechobee Church. It's a pretty long drive down the rolling hilly roads in the woods, and it's a tiny cemetery that I'm at where a young man was killed in 1964 along with two of his compatriots. They were very young and taken at a very young age. So let's take a walk, come on with me, and let's walk to his grave, and we'll look at some of the other graves as we go on our way. In the summer of 1964, there were 1,000 students who came from all the colleges and universities to the north. They came down here, and their mission was to teach the Southern blacks about their voting rights as full citizens of this country. President Johnson was going to be executing the Civil Rights Bill in July that year, where Martin Luther King would be standing at his side, witnessing the event. And it was thought to be the beginning of the turning point for the end of racial oppression. But here in Mississippi, it was seen as an invasion by many. Think about it. There were generations of hatred that does not go down easy. They say it was called, as so titled in the growing FBI files at that time here, Mississippi Burning. And we've all probably, many of us have seen that movie telling the story. Here, like Columbia, Mississippi, where I did an episode on Walter Payton and we visited his parents, we have these same type of graves where they are, the vaults are, they're right on the surface. So not being from here, it's rather interesting for me. This must be a custom for this area. James Chaney had 3 sisters and a very little brother. And he was born here. At 15 years old, as a high school student, he and some of his friends, they began wearing NAACP badges. So you could see he was already taking a stand for racial equality. At a very young age. He was at a school where they had segregation going on, and when the principal heard about it, he suspended them out of fear that there would be an all-white reaction to something bad. There's a beautiful grave here of a man named Benny Earl Whitlock. Died in 03. There is a bench here that tells his story. I wonder if he was the pastor here. It says, "My life story." In 1962, James participated in a freedom ride from up in Tennessee to Greenville, Mississippi, and then another one from Greenville down to Meridian. He and his younger brother participated in a lot of events, and they were all nonviolent events. They were just peacefully protesting. Of course, he did volunteer work for the Congress of Racial Equality Corps here in Meridian. And in 1964, he was meeting with a lot of leaders, namely a guy named Michael Schwerner, nicknamed Mickey. And he was the local leader here, and he comes into play in the story. Now, what I'm going to be telling you is a lot of what happened in the movie Mississippi Burning. And if you haven't seen that movie, highly recommend it. And these two boys were working with another boy named Andrew Goodman. And they were, they all got in trouble here because they were investigating this. There was a church that was burned down. And it was called the Mount Zion Methodist Church. So they went down there and they were interviewing the pastor and some of the people, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And they had heard that parishioners had been beaten by whites, and they accused this 26-year-old deputy, Cecil Price, of stopping their caravan and forcing the deacons to kneel down right in the headlights of their own cars while the white men, as they said, beat the crap out of them with rifle butts. On June 21st in 64, Mr. Cecil Price, sheriff, arrested the three boys because he said they had a traffic violation. And he took them to the jail. They were obviously not following the book in a lot of ways. What happened was, of course, he waited till late at night. I think it was 10:30, and said, okay, we're going to release these guys now. And the Ku Klux Klan guys were out there waiting. Well, they didn't jump them right away. So they got in their station wagon and were rushing back down here from Philadelphia. And by the way, I forgot to mention that was up in Philadelphia. It's about 40 miles northwest of here. When they got to a road that was dark and very rural, all of a sudden all the headlights came on and pulled them over. Well, tried to pull them over. The boys, they didn't know it was police. They just saw headlights. I mean, it's reported that one of the cars was Price. And they tried to outrun them. They were going up to 100 miles an hour, and finally the siren and the police lights came on. And of course they pulled over. And there were pickup trucks and a whole bunch of Klan guys with Price. Well, they took them, basically, make a long story short, they took them to a location, and one by one they shot them. They shot Schwerner and Goodman in the chest and shot Chaney 3 times. And they brought them to this place called Old Jolly Farm. It was owned by the richest man in the county, Olin Burridge, who, by the way, said, hell, I've got enough dam that'll hold 100 of them. Let's bury them there. Well, they took him there and they buried him under up to 14 feet of dirt. They said one or two of them were still alive. They had clay in their fist. Can you imagine? It's a terrible story. Well, the aftermath is very generally that I think it was 44 days before they found the bodies, and it really took the FBI coming down here to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan and start to get informants. And there was a Mr. X who finally came forward, who was in the inside of the group, and he's still not known to this day, but thank God he gave the FBI the location of where the three boys were buried. And they went out there and they got a private contractor and they dug them up, and this turned into a national, international story. It got big. This is James's grave here, a beautiful monument. We have stones on top. It's beautiful. I had read that it was receiving vandalism. That really breaks one's heart to hear that. There is an epitaph that says, "There are those who are alive, yet will never live. There are those who are dead, yet will live forever. Great deeds inspire and encourage the living." (1943), June 21st, 1964, and that is the well-known picture on the grave of James Earl Chaney. Many of us have seen. I'll just reach way over here and show you guys. You can see that there are metal supports on here, and I'm going to guess that is because vandals come here at night, or at least did, and push this beautiful gravestone down. Sickening. Well, generally the aftermath was a whole bunch of guys were indicted. Things were delayed. The local authorities, did everything they could. They really didn't get any serious prison time. I think Price got 6 years. I will say, when Price got out of prison, he was, I don't know if it was genuine, but he was repentant, and he did help an NFL football player out of retirement get his transport license, and I think that gentleman was Marcus Dupree, running back, and helped him in his retirement get work. Well, this event really sent the snowball down the hill to get this country off its butt, get people to understand that because it's written in the law doesn't mean you don't have to listen and obey. It needs to be enforced and understood. We hope James Earl Chaney is resting in peace here, and we also hope that Michael Schwerner and Andrew Goodman are also resting in peace where they are buried. God rest their souls.